And in doing so, like this process, guys, like the very first thing that I generally do on every client is I start off by putting in a profile. And I'll feed her towards you so you don't have to move. And so right now, what I'm looking at is where I want to separate my layering pattern and how I'm gonna work this technique out. First things first, I'm gonna go ahead and just subdivide this back area from the front. And I know that from where the hair separates, I can sit here and read the growth pattern even on the mannequin. And so when I look at where the crown sits, slightly just above the crown is actually a bit of a separation in that hair. So I'm just gonna let it part itself so you guys can see that. I didn't even put that in. I just literally just slightly push the hair forward. So I'm gonna continue that down to the corner nape. Take that down all the way. There we go. I'm gonna comb this hair forward for a second. So there's an area through the back of the round that I'm gonna be working off of, okay? So technically, if you look at the round of the head shape, this is more or less the flatter area of the round of the head. And then you have a transition, then you have the round of the head shape to the back. And so where I'm gonna be putting this layering pattern literally is just through the back of the round and then above the round, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and separate this just a touch. And I'm gonna work this so it's a little bit easier to control. Just to that area, just right there behind the ear. I'm gonna comb this forward. On my mannequin, you know, she has the lovely mannequin ears, so it's not gonna hold a whole lot of hair out of the way right now. But on a human, you get a little bit better grip with that ear area. All right, so now, I'm gonna go ahead and again, let this separate so you guys can see how that just happens naturally, okay? Now I'm gonna go ahead and take this down again, just behind the ear. We even have like a head shape where I have the entire thing broken up so you know, could see how the round of the head shape works. But in the sectioning process, literally this area just behind the ear area, that's actually the front area, if you will. It's the front side of the transition of the round, which occurs right through here. All right, so keeping this as clean as possible in this moment. And now I'm going to be working, in essence, it's going to work a diagonal back, okay? But I'm going to actually push that diagonal back in. Right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to be working, literally, if I place my comb on the round of the head shape, you see that there? As I flexion the comb up, as it leaves the round of the head shape, that's what we consider above the round. So I'm going to be working above the round with this layering pattern. It's going to be very minimal. Taking that diagonal back, if you will, I'm going to come around. Same thing over here. We work the same process. So literally, where that comb leaves the round of the head shape, as we flexion above, work that diagonal back through there. Be nice if I could stay a bit clean. There we go. One second. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get around so I can show you guys instead of showing myself. Let's see. section. For a moment, put this out of the way. There we have it. All right, so one thing I'm going to do right quick is I'm going to go ahead and just clean this up. Downside, a little bit sometimes when working out of mirror, being able to work cleanly. So take a moment just to make sure things are correct, make sure life is good. Let's see. Okay. Look even, Steven, from this standpoint. That off, and you have that separation from the back. Now, this back area here, keeping that separate there. I'm going to clip this out of the way, this front area. Spin this around. Go ahead and clip this as well. Run out of clips. There we have it. So, as far as the theory of the sectioning, this is what we're going to be working with. So right now, what I'm doing is in this particular shape, I'm going to work a bit in reverse. So a lot of times when people are working with longer hair, the very first thing that they do is they put in a perimeter line. And so inside of that, I don't want to lock myself into an actual length in the moment. I know that I'm going to be layering this at a certain level, so I know where I want things to start to collapse in the round of the head shape. But in this situation, I don't want to lock myself into a length at this very moment. So what I'm going to start off with is actually the layering pattern, then I'm going to go back and adjust my perimeter. Right? But starting off here in the center back, I'm going to come in, I'm just going to take literally a vertical guide right down the center. And inside of my consultation with my client, what I would have already gone through is where I actually want those layers to sit. And so I always have that silhouette conversation. Walk them through the process so that they see the top is flat. Then you have like an A-like line, and then wherever that layering pattern sits, that's where the hair is going to collapse. So that gives you the theory of where their layers are going to fall. But in the same breath, it doesn't exactly tell you how dense that perimeter is. It doesn't tell you the exact haircut. But at least you can have an idea of where that layering pattern is going to sit. I know for this particular shape, I want the layers to start collapsing roughly around the jawline area. Okay, so I know from that standpoint, I know how short I want to take that and how that translates to the front. And so through this area, I'm going to bring this up. So bring up my guide section, if you will. Okay, so I'm going to place my comb on the round of the head shape, and I'm actually going to drop this down just a smidge in a second. Alright, so dropping that down just a touch. So as I pick the hair up, I want you guys to see this, because this is a lot of what we go over even inside of our education here, is how I'm going to utilize the comb. So I'm going to place the comb literally on the round of the head shape. I'm going to literally be working this section. Obviously, in this case, it's a guide section, so I'm going to, as far as my parts and sections, distribution, elevation, and cut, be working a central vertical guide. My distribution, I'm going to be on base. in this situation, I'm going to be over directing the hair 90 degrees, literally from the section straight up off of the round. And so in doing so, allowing myself to place the comb on the round of the head shape, pivot the comb, and because I'm holding the comb in the center, right, I can elevate here. And then from this, I can decide what kind of line I want to work. In this case, I am going to work square, but even if I wanted to work a short to long line, I could easily pivot my comb, slide, hold, and set the hair down. In this case, I'm going to be working that line square. So I'm going to bring the hair up. And in this situation, I want to see where on the round of the head shape, that's going to land. So technically, where this is sitting from that crown region, okay, I want this to land at natural fall, right here at the base of the occipital. Okay, so below the occipital, that's where I want that weight to sit, all right? And I know that where that's going to translate is we work around the head shape, because the base of the occipital hits right at that high point of the jawline, okay? So, bringing this up, setting the hair down, getting that excess off initially, and then coming back in, I'm going to point cut this line. And in this situation here, guys, just so you can see this, as I point cut the line, technically I'm point cutting away from my hand. I'm doing it quite fast because I'm trying to, work this technique within a certain amount of time period. But I want you guys to see this here. So literally, right? So if her nape sits here at natural fall, below her occipital sits right here. So right here below the occipital at natural fall, that's where the weight is actually landing, okay? And allowing for that texture to kick in there, all right? I want the hair to sit there at natural fall in case she is that client that is gonna wear her hair natural, if you will. So in this situation, I'm gonna split my guide in half. Okay. I'm gonna pivot. I'm going to over direct the hair from the parting, right, off the round of the head shape. So I'm literally going to use the top of my comb as a pivot off the round of the head shape to my guide, and then I'm going to cut to follow my guide. I'm going to take that excess off and then come in and point cut to my guide. I'm going to do one more over direction, if you will. Same thing here. I'm going to over direct from the parting, off the round of the head shape, and then up to my guide. Okay. Set the hair down. If I cross-check that, just so you guys can see this, it's going to give me 11 little short to long. Okay? So, I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side, and I'm trying to think of how to stand. Here we go. Alright. So again, I'm going to be pivoting from that crown region. Again, over directing the hair from the parting and then up to my guide. Part of why I work in this manner is just because it's so much easier to control the hair. Specifically, if you're working with longer hair, and I know that this is a mannequin, and I know this is not an extremely long one, so I'm not working with excessively long hair. But in the same breath, I remember when I was a new hairdresser trying to control long hair, and I remember that struggle. And so being able to control hair is the absolute issue with every hairdresser on the planet. And so being able to teach consistency and no dexterity is the biggest challenge of all, but it is completely doable. All right, so right now, I've opened up that back area. So I have, in essence, my weight line sits with a short to long, and you have the release from down below, okay? Moving into this front area, again, staying technically above the round of the head shape with this layering pattern. I'm going to be working just a centralized guide right through here. Okay. I'm going to continue that guide forward. So let me turn this around. taking that excess off, and then coming back through and point cutting that line. And again, as I point cut that line, I allow myself a bit of distance from where I'm cutting, so that way I'm not trying to cut like right to the nibs of my fingers. I want to put a bit of softness in that line. Knowing that I have that short to long guide from the back, but the tie-in for my guide is the fact that it's cut square. Okay, but now in this situation, I'm going to take a bit of the guide from the back and then incorporate that with how I travel through to the front area here. So I'm going to comb this up. In essence, I'm going to let this be a guide to length for cutting short to long. And I'm going to continue traveling taking horizontals across the top of the head shape. Coming that hair up, setting it down, getting the excess up, and coming back in and point cutting that short to long line. Let's see something here. Just make sure I keep this nice and clean. Some of these guys from down below are trying to creep in, so I'm going to put them down. There we go. Not in a negative way, positive way. There we go. That was a dad joke, in case you were wondering. All right. So continuing that. Same process through. Following that short to long line. And last but not least, the last area here. This mannequin is a bit finer than some of the other ones. So the density is it's kind of light, it's kind of airy, right? But overall, just seeing where that sits, okay? So again, high point of that jawbone is where I want that to land, right? So I'm gonna take out these clips here, which in essence is this front perimeter area. Alright. I'm going to bring this down. I'm going to walk you guys through what I'm working with now. Okay. So technically right now, I just layered my client's hair, okay? When I comb that perimeter down, you can't actually tell in this moment until the hair actually starts to move. And you see where that collapse occurs. One thing that I'm doing though is I'm working off of a theory that is similar to, in essence, if you were to cut a fringe, if you understand how to cut fringe, and we've all done it, we've all made the mistake where we've sectioned it off, we put hair that didn't belong there, you comb it down, you cut your fringe, you let it go, and then there's that piece over here that just is disconnected, you're ticked off, you jacked your hair, whatever. It's one of those things where when you understand the theory of how to cut fringe and how to work with those kind of disconnections based off of the round and growth pattern, your fringe length can, be roughly right through here, just above the brow. And then the very next length could be all the way down past your ankles, but it looks seamless. And there's a reason for that. So it's paying attention to the growth pattern and seeing what you can get away with and what you can't, right? And so inside of that, in this situation, in essence, I did the reverse. Instead of cutting a fringe, I actually left the fringe area and that entire front perimeter area as a perimeter and then layered behind that. So the disconnection is going to come from behind, right? So when I comb this up, even in this moment as we speak, just for you guys to see this, okay? You're going to have a disconnection from the layering pattern that sits just behind that front perimeter length right there, okay? And in doing so, It's going to allow a few things to happen, but the main thing right now that I'm going to do, just so I can go ahead and just finish up the theory of the technique, I'm going to go ahead and clean up the perimeter, and I'm going to work a little bit of a face frame, maybe just a minor one. Go from there. Okay. So right now, do you have any questions? I don't even know. If not, it's fine. We're so fine. Same answer, by the way. So right now, what I'm going to do is make sure that I'm eye level, roughly. I'm going to be working on camera again. So again, holding this natural fall. And you know, this mannequin has all that lovely rat shoe on the bottom. It's always fun to be working with here. So in this situation, considering the texture of the hair and considering the length, right now what I want to do is I'm actually going to work a bit of a technique where I'm going to just slice from the perimeter, slice from the bottom up to work in a perimeter line, if you will. It's going to be a soft texture line.
You have a question?
I do have a question. All right.
In the back radial sections, were you over-directing everything to the middle?
In the back sections, yes, I was over-directing everything to the middle. I do want to clarify, though, it's how I was over-directing. From that pivoting point, I was over-directing from the parting. So the hair literally traveled off the round of the head shape and then up to the guide. Because of that, it's actually going to allow that hair to travel further. So whenever I cross-check, if you want to see it, just real quick, whenever you cross-check that, what that's going to give you is a short to long line. So I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's going to give you that short to long line. So for the fact that the hair had to travel off the round of the head shape and then up to the guide, it had to travel further to get there, right, to that center guide. If I would have just combed the hair straight to center and you cross-check it, you would see a square end result. Okay. All right, so right now, again here, just combing the hair down, natural fall, and then slightly just combing the hair upwards, and then slicing from the bottom up. It's going to give me a bit of that texture, but it's also going to add an element of strength, because anytime you slice directionally when you're working top down or bottom up, in this case, working bottom up, it's creating little elements of graduation. So yes, I am taking aspects of the perimeter away, but it's creating strength in those bits. And for some reason, I was popular for a hot second. I just got a call. All right, so and I'm going to work this in a manner where I'm going to take it just around the head shape. So in essence, I'm working just the theory of a perimeter line. It's going to, in essence, be a one length perimeter, not a one length where I'm over directing the hair. It's just working that line all the way around the head shape. Just working it square, if you will. This front area, I'm just going to comb it down, over direct it slightly out to the side where I'm at.
It's a cool way to cut the perimeter.
Yeah, so anytime you're slicing, if you slice from the top down, it's a layering pattern, right? If you're slicing from the bottom up, you're creating graduation. So just understanding what that's going to give you and why is really important. In this case, I want the perimeter to be nice and textured, if you will, but not blown out. So there is a difference between those two things, clearly. And, you know, I'm relying on the theory of a mirror. So if we're even, that's going to be amazing. I think we are. Yes.
How would you blend this cut with someone who has two different types of texture?
That's a great question.
Repeat it?
No, you don't have to repeat it. So it's a hard. Oh, I'm sorry. I need to repeat the question. So how do you blend this How do you blend this haircut with someone who has two different types of texture? So I'm gonna have to be a politician in this moment. To answer that question, I would have to see the textures that I'm working with. Okay, I'm not trying to not answer it. It's just that is very circumstantial. And so, you know, even hairbrains at one time, I remember seeing they posted this image, and it was curly textures, and it had on one human head, right, one person, and they had a piece of white paper, and they had 5 different curl patterns on this one person. And so I understand the theory of what you're asking, but in the same breath, you know, that could be texture that is something that's growing out from something that was relaxed, or something that was a straightener, and then they have a different texture growing at the root. Those are all different circumstances, so if that were the case, I might not do a shape like this. It just depends. It all depends, and I know that's a horrible way to answer a question. But this is what I tell everybody. The only question that you could answer definitively in all of hairdressing is you're always cutting that person's hair for how it falls naturally on them. That is always true. Outside of that, everything is literally circumstantial. So, not to not answer your question, but that's the best I can do at the moment.
So on the perimeter, when you were talking about slicing, so from the bottom up, it would make the hair tuck in.
Not tuck in. Think of it like this. I'm going to be extreme here, right? So let's take this. Let's say that I'm going to over direct this entire panel like so. I'm going to come in and I would slice that, right? So what would I be doing? In essence, I would be taking length off of the bottom and maintaining strength from the layering pattern above. So it's a form of graduation. If I were to take this hair, in this case, I would over direct it, let's say up, and I slice from the top down, I'm going to create, in essence, a new layering pattern and a release of weight. So one's going to build strength, build weight, the other's going to release the weight. All right, so inside of that, I'm going to go ahead and work just this front area as far as the face frame, if you will. I'm not trying to get in the way.
You have a baby stylist here.
All right.
How do you remember the difference between a concave and convex layer?
That's a great question because I don't actually use those terms. I know people that do. I just work off of the aspect of what are you cutting? What's your line? Are you cutting short to long? Are you cutting square? Are you inverting it? You know, there's a lot of different mathematical terminologies out there. I wasn't, and where I come from, wasn't built off of concave or convex. We literally speak off of literally what are you doing? How are you combing it? What's your distribution? What's your elevation? How are you working the technique? And so, Michael, concave, convex, what's the difference?
Concave comes out, convex falls in.
Sure. Okay, so again, I go with short to long, square, round, whatever. As far as understanding the math, that's why I encourage people to do head sheets on a regular basis. If you want to wrap your head around the math of what's happening, that's how you would approach that. And you definitely want to draw your head sheets to scale so that way you can literally see where is that hair going to land on the round of the head shape and how that's going to work out for you. Okay. All right. So right now, I'm going to tilt her head slightly back and away. I'm going to come in. I'm going to take a diagonal back, if you will. Literally, like frontal bone sits here, the apex sits there. So in between those two reference points, I'm just going to take a diagonal back. Take a vertical right here at the ear. I'm just going to comb this hair back for what I'm not using. Drop this down just a touch. WNBA, I'm not doing my hair. Alright, so right now, because of how I work my line, I'm gonna allow this corner literally coming. Okay, if you see where I'm at on the round of the head shape. In essence, where that fringe area, you could take it to in essence like the hairline. So if I comb that down, you see where that separation would occur. It's gonna be literally right through here. So I'm gonna let this corner stay out, if you will, but I'm gonna incorporate what I'm doing. What I'm basically trying to say is this corner length is my guide to length. That's where I'm getting that from. So working from that, I'm gonna over direct the hair from the parting. So my body position, you have literally, you have two body positions in all the haircuts, okay? You are technically what I refer to as a below the round body position. You have to center up on what it is that you're doing. Okay. In this situation, I'm just gonna come in, I'm gonna put line, visual line, and I'm gonna land set that down just a few inches right here below her chin. So at natural fall with that light bend in the hair, it's gonna be roughly about 2 inches below the chin. Okay? Comb the rest of the hair down, see if anything reaches. I'm just going to comb it natural fall and then just over direct it, see if anything's going to come over. Just a touch right down there at the bottom. That was it. Okay, so I'm going to do the same on the opposite side. Again, slightly tilt the head back and away. It's like a manhandle here. Alright, so take that back, put that down. Vertical to the top of here, let me sit back. So again, pulling from the same reference point of where I got my guide to length. So I'm going to turn her this way, so I guess you guys can see it better there. Again, over directing from that parting. Alright, so I'm going to come in.
Do you also do razor cuts?
Absolutely. If you guys knew my story, you would know that I like to utilize the razor a lot for time reasons. Specifically because I tend to take a long time when I'm doing hair. So I have a bit of a reputation. Yeah, I love the razor, man. I love the texture that it gives. So if you guys look, I got lucky. I ended up even Steven. Lucky me, all right? So you guys know on the first go, just thank the baby Jesus, because that's what happened, all right? That and hopefully a bit of practice, but yeah. There we have it. Okay, so now that we have that in place, okay. All right. I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna go ahead and start the drying process. Now look at the texture of the hair. She doesn't really like, this mannequin has a nice texture, which is lovely. I went ahead and, again, when it comes to like looking at the overall fabric of her hair, when I prepped it with that sea salt spray and then a light bit of that serum, I knew it was going to allow me to have some of those like kind of like light and airy grabs to the hair. So just seeing what that's giving me. Right now I'm going to come in and utilize the lovely dryer. I'm going to turn it down just a touch though, so hopefully you guys can hear me talk.
So while you're trying, someone wants to know what kind of scissors you use.
It's a good question. So I've been working with somebody over the past few years. That is something that is soon to be done. For a few different reasons, we've had to put that on hold. But yeah, working with someone who he works with Hikari. He's a great guy. His name is Kerry. Lovely man. And so just been in a bit of a development, if you will, for scissors. And so I will say that I do prefer a longer blade. That's just something that's a preference for me. I like a 6.5 to a 7-inch blade. So that's just one of those things that I try to tell people, even when they utilize scissors. If they like a scissor, you really want to see how it feels in the hand. Obviously, you want it to perform, but there's a comfortability aspect that is really necessary. But in the same breath, even how you hold your scissors, and how you're able to work your scissors are really, really important. Because clearly, our entire industry is built on dexterity. So it's important that you can easily manage or work with your tools. One of the biggest things that I constantly just preach on is just the ability to learn that dexterity, how to work your tools. And so, even with the comb, the idea of learning how to comb out hair, that's a big one. I remember when I was a new hairdresser, man, just being able to comb hair was a bit of a challenge because I did what everybody else does. I held my comb here. And then there was weight in my elbow. When I'd go to comb and I'd catch the hair, it's all wrong. You shift where you hold your comb and you hold it here in the center, okay? So it's like a little butterfly action here. I'm not saying you hold your comb here at all times. There's times where you won't. But overall, learning how to let your comb do the work is really key, really crucial. And even knowing certain aspects of the comb, like when I comb the hair, it's a neutral comb, so even as I comb, you can watch my whole arm, it's gonna rotate as I work that down. So even as the comb hits a knot or what have you, it'll hit it and it just bounce out. So again, just allowing the comb to do its thing. But yeah, I wish to God someone would have walked me through that when I was brand new. Because man, that would have saved so much time. Alright, so right now I'm just going to go ahead and section this off so I can blow dry our friend here. I'm going to get this top section sorted and then I'm going to section the perimeter out of the way. This top area I'm going to work from that, if you place your comb on the round, from that mid-recession area to the crown. And when I use that term mid-recession, I know that someone might look at that and say, well, that's not the mid-recession, that's high. Again, how we have designated the recession area on the round of the head shape, here, we base that information off of where the comb leaves the round of the head. So, in essence, if you look at how the comb leaves the round of the head shape here, the low point, that's what we consider low. You flexion the comb on the round, and right there where it touches, right there is what we consider mid. And then again, you flexion above, and as it leaves the round of the head shape here, in essence, that's what we consider high. And so if you have consistency on just having, a standard way of describing something, then it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you make an adjustment, you could say what that adjustment is and then explain why. The reference point won't change, but why you do something might, right? And so just having consistency in those reference points on the round of the head is really big. It's important. All right, so right now what I'm going to do, have that top area sectioned off, and then I'm going to section off the perimeter. So in essence, I'm going to work diagonal back down the round of the head shape. Okay. So leaving out that perimeter area. So let me do this first. I'm going to go ahead and section this off so you guys can see. So I'm going to work that diagonal back roughly to around that top ear area, and then just behind it, and then I'm going to take another diagonal back looking down the round of the head shape. So I'm going to section this area off. Do the same thing on the opposite side here. Same thing here. Let's go ahead and section that out of the way. There we go. So I'm gonna grab the brush, trusty tool, all right? All right, so inside of my blow dryer here, one thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna use a low speed but a high heat just so I can like talk a little bit about a few things. Okay. I will say that, actually I might go medium speed. I need to speed this up a little bit. I'm looking at my time. So right now, just in finishing the hair, okay. One thing that I learned when I was in Italy, man, those guys, if you're Italian, you have to learn how to finish hair before you ever learn how to color. So the Italians, geez, they can blow dry some hair. So right now I'm working a riveting effect on the hair, just in that front perimeter area. Just to add a bit of texture in that finish. Just a bit of a polished texture. In this back area, I'm going to work it as well, but be a little bit looser. So I'm going to hit both front sides. I'm just going to loosely get this dry. Quick. Come back and subsection this out, the diagonal back. I like using diagonal backs because if I want, I can add elevation to the finish, or I can keep it as flat as I want it to be. The main thing in like literally allowing the hair to ribbon in this way is allowing the brush to roll back on itself. And then just riveting that hair down. So this is a little bit different than that type of blow drying where, you take it, you wrap it, you twist it, and then you just leave it. This is a little bit softer. It's a little bit more controlled. There we go. So you keep the brush vertical, and you roll it back on itself. You slide back down. You work that down. This did take some practice, especially being able to switch hands to blow dry. I will say this, full disclosure, I am fine at switching hands vertically. If you want me to switch hands and blow dry horizontally, good luck. It's not my thing. I just haven't ever taken the time to try and master that. So right now, let's see, I'm proving myself right. Not master that. I'm gonna come in, get this dry. The main reason why I'm approaching it in this manner is because I want to have a bit of texture in the perimeter, and then just kind of have a soft like texture at the top. I don't want it to be too perfect, too controlled. Again, I want this to be like almost like a bit of like a polished version of a natural texture finish, if that's possible. Believe me when I say I am not trying to do like how do I put this? I want this finish to be something that has an organic feel. But in the same breath, clearly you can see that, this is not an air dry finish. But I'm not trying to send her out with just, those curls that we see all over the internet. And hey, if that's you, that's great. It's just not what I'm doing right now. So, I know the most amazing thing to watch is someone blow dry. But I will say this, when it comes to, you know, understanding your tools, understanding like the fabric that you're going for when it comes to hair, you know, everything that you do should be from that approach when you think of it. Because it is a fabric, right? So if you approach it from that perspective, utilize your products to create the fabric that you want, right? And then also even, you know, with your tools. So if I wanted this to be a bit more like organic, obviously, with the texture, I would have approached this completely differently. I would have utilized like my diffuser, would have done some elements with that, finishing this with that, had a different feel. But right now, just setting this up so that way, as I work through, even when I'm done, I already know how I'm going to finish this row out. But I have to hurry up into this blow dry because technically we do have haircut number 2, which does not mean I'm doing an entirely different shade. It just means that I also have to texturize. So there's that. So, I'll work just a larger panel, come in, just wrap this. Trying to work a bit faster here. Not that any of you guys are wondering this, but when it comes to like my times in the salon, on average I spend at least an hour and a half with a haircut. But that comes from the fact that it's just how I do hair. Obviously everyone's going to do hair a bit differently, but from a technical perspective, you know, it does take time, specifically when it comes to the texturizing methods, right? And so, again, if you're texturizing just to texturize because you think that's what you're supposed to do, you need to stop. Everything that you do needs to have a reason. You need to understand the depth of which you're texturizing, what that's going to give you, the method to which you're utilizing that technique, all of those things. All right, so right now, I'm trying run quickly fast here. Just gonna get this up. There we go. I'm gonna switch this to high because I think people can hear me. Normally, when we're demoing in class, you have to drop your blow dryer down a bit so people can hear you. So I'm assuming it's coming through loud and clear. I'm going to do literally just one round of one of these. Feel that grab from the seesaw spray. I'm going to roll the brush back in on itself. So there's that one twirl. There we go. Same thing on the opposite side here. Go. So again, I'm going to subdivide that with a diagonal back. And if you're not careful, yes, you can get your brush stuck. But it's not exactly the best time on the planet if you're getting your brush stuck. Believe it or not, it actually helps to roll it back in further, and that'll help somewhat undo that issue for you. So now I'm moving to that top area. I'm going to go ahead and work this horizontally across the top. Stretching that out. Just going to subdivide these guys. Set those down. There's a bit of a in that. And then you can have this a bit high. Like that. There we go. Separate these guys. Alright, same thing here. Alright, last but not least, this front area. Move out of the way here. Samantha's ducking to get the shot. Good. She's giving me the look. So.
For anybody tuning in, I just kind of recap while you're drying this.
Alright, so quick recap. The overall theory of the shape, guys, is again, this is a disconnected internal square layer. Okay. Right now what I'm doing is just blow drying the shape, clearly, but doing it in a way where adding a bit of a polish, and the theory of it again is to have a bit of a natural texture type of finish, even though I'm using the brush, I've dropped cold water. Let's start to blast this out, right?
Danny says hi.
So I'm looking at that texture. Someone says hi?
Danny says hi.
Danny, what's up, Danny? You guys want to know one of the coolest guys on the planet? It's Danny. All right. So a bit of texture, a bit of this, a bit of that. Okay. right now what I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to walk through just a bit of the texturizing techniques, right? The hair is sorted as far as the finish is concerned, but right now I am going to go back through just for a touch. Looking at my time, I have some time, so I do want to touch on this, okay? First things first, I'm going to go back internally, and I want to encourage a bit more of this texture to kick through here. I don't want it to be as dense, so I'm going to look at just working, if you will, in a pivoting manner around the head shape vertically, okay? So, just separating this hair out. I don't need to come in and take out too much weight because the hair is a bit fine. I'm going to add just a little bit of encouragement inside of that texture itself, create a bit more airiness. If this were my client and she wanted her hair to dry that natural texture finish, then I would come in and I would utilize this technique. Technically what's happening is I am slicing from the bottom up. Okay. I'm slightly closing my blade as I work that C curvature slice in there to encourage, in essence, an element of lift in the hair, right? So I want a slight bit of lift, but I also want to release that weight at the same time, right? So if you work the slicing technique, you're going bottom up, then in essence you're creating subtle elements of graduation inside of the hair itself. So there's levels of density that occur, different levels of density. Like this is just fine. This area on the mannequin is actually quite dense, which is interesting. So, you know, just coming in, I'm looking for consistency in the fabric of the hair. And I'm also paying attention to the depth to which I'm working because I like to go deep into the hair. Primary reason is it does allow for quite a bit more time inside of that grow out. I built a clientele that the average time that, you know, mid-length to long hair client would come back was, you know, 4, 6, 8 months. Because at each level of the grow out, because you go so deep with that texture, it actually allows for them to have a lot of versatility in their finish and also gives them quite a bit more time when it comes to having to come back. So I did build a clientele that came back over time as opposed to every 6 to 8 weeks. But again, that's all on how you do hair. It's just my approach. Alright, so this is that disconnected area, so I'm going to come back to that in a second. I'm just going to work the same technique around this side here. My body position has to stay the same, primarily because I can only work from bottom up in one way. I can't switch body positions here. So if I switch my body position to go this way, then technically I'd be working top down. So I want to create an encouragement of lift, not a release of weight internally. And I'm just looking at the density, again, of the hair. Just looking for consistency in that texture. And the density of that texture in there. Alright, so, almost there. I got lucky because we had a head that didn't have as much density throughout the entire. Right. So now working that layering pattern. As you guys can see, where in essence where these layers are literally falling here, right? So you have this kind of texture and this kind of movement, and then you have this disconnected front perimeter half. So you see how those shorter layers kind of float? They just kind of float over that disconnected perimeter in the front. And then when you do the reverse, and you bring this front area back over this, right? If she pushes her hair back, she's gonna have a separate disconnection that's occurring here. Now, the one thing that we have to make sure that we do is with this disconnection, we have to make sure that it's not stringy, right? So the disconnection can definitely be there. It just has to be a bit more controlled. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work vertical panels across the top. I'm gonna comb this up and I'm gonna look at that disconnected link as I kick this in. All right, so now I'm looking at those bits that are gonna give me that stringy effect to the hair. So I'm gonna come in and do just a slide cut. Just a bit of a slide cut to blend some of those links. There we have it. From a texturizing standpoint, take a bit of weight out, same breath. Allowing that disconnection to still exist, right? I'm not trying to just completely remove it. I'm gonna take two vertical sections to look at how that's working out for me. Let's see. There we have it. Okay, so same thing here. Just like cut to blend. And then I come in, just release just a touch of weight in that area. Alright. Last but not least, last one on the opposite side here. Turn her around. There we have it. Let's bring this up. I'll turn it this way. Turn her this way, not it. Do a bit of a blend there. There you have it. So now we still have our disconnect, and now when the hair falls over in the back, it kind of has this lovely like floating aspect to it, right? And that's going to come again because of the disconnection from the layering pattern here, and then the link that's sitting over just the top of that. So that's going to have that tendency to float if you bring that hair back over it. It has a really cool effect to the hair, okay? So in essence, it's the theory, if you will, of like almost like an anti-fringe, right? So you maintain that perimeter area. As far as the finish is concerned, I'm going to utilize my dryer here. I'm going to come in with a touch of spray shine. So product-wise, I've been using some good stuff from our friends from 11 in Australia. So they have a spray shine, spray gloss, actually is what it's called. So I'm going to get this product into the hair. Right. And I'll come back with a bit of a spray wax. I'm a big fan of the spray wax. Specifically, this one is vegan if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but I know that they have vegan waxes in their line. I think this one is. You know what? I should just read it. It is vegan, which is lovely. So it has a bit of that weight of a wax, but in the same breath, it's not as heavy as you might think. Huge fan of spray wax. All right, so right now, if this were a model, and I were pushing her hair around to shoot her, I'd be looking at it, and I would actually stand her up. So do you mind if I bring her up to my level here? What have you? Just pushing the hair around, seeing what I like about it, seeing what's going on here. And then looking for that whatever that finish might be. Alright, so I would encourage you guys, if you haven't, please shoot your work. And shooting it for Instagram is different than shooting it like with an actual photographer. So bear in mind, you can get some really cool stuff with your phone. I am not saying that. I'm just saying that, if you work with different photographers, even specifically if you have like somebody who does editorial work, it's really cool to shoot with different photographers that can see things from a different perspective and get so much more out of your work than you even thought possible. I will say a shout out to a new friend, an amazing photographer, Nick Berardi. He's in LA. Lovely man, amazing talent. If you guys can ever shoot your work, interested in that, he's an amazing photographer, if you can. All right, so last but not least, I'm just gonna use a touch of the hairspray. I'm gonna grab one that doesn't work, because that's good. Will you grab your one for me? I might have dropped that one. It's just hairspray. Yeah, that's good. I think I dropped that one. That was my bad. Alrighty. And this girl, she reminds me of Raquel Welch.
It looks beautiful.
I just dated myself. For you kids, don't know who Raquel Welch is. Go watch an old movie. Figure it out. Alright, so again, I don't know why I just clapped. Alright, so to walk you guys through this one more time. It's so stupid. The overall concept here, again, with the clapping, the overall concept here is to create an internal disconnect in the layering pattern, right? While maintaining the strength and the structure of the front perimeter. Okay, so working with her length, I didn't come in and take the length off in the very first go. The very first thing that I did is I approached it from the back. Okay, so I'm gonna walk you through the section you're wearing. And even before that, I'm gonna rewind because I prepped the hair. So you always wanna prep the hair with the end result in mind and the fabric of the hair that you need. I used a sea salt spray with a touch of a serum. Again, this was inside of the 11 Australia product line. And then after I prepped your hair, I sectioned her off, so took that profile parting and then took literally a radial, if you will, from the crown area to just behind the ear. Okay, so it's where that around the head shape has that transition. It's the front side of that transition of the round. And so sectioning that off to the back area and then going from that, literally pushing in essence, I was taking a diagonal back. Okay, so right here from the apex to where that radial sat. So I stayed above the round of the head shape, taking that diagonal back and then sectioning that out, okay? Starting off from the back area, I brought my guide, took a central vertical guide, okay? Brought that up and I cut that square. Where that weight sat at natural fall was right here at below the occipital, okay? After establishing that guide, taking pivoting radials just through the back of that radial, where that radial existed, sorry. So taking pivoting radials to the back of the round, and each section over-directed to that stationary guide in the center. But the key, right, as I'm pivoting, is I'm combing the hair from the parting, combing it off the round and up to the guide. So the hair actually has to travel a further distance to get to that guide, right? So when you come all the way around, then you take a cross section. If you look at it, it's gonna give you a short to long end result, okay? And then I utilize that short to long as my guide as it continued, right? Through that center area, right? So cutting that short to long guide through there, and that was, sorry, I forgot one step. It was actually after connecting that guide square. Okay, and then I took horizontals after I split the guide and then continued that short to long. I have hair just dangling. All right, so Inside of the layering pattern though, that top area is completely disconnected from that front perimeter hairline, okay? The back area absolutely blends. This top area, there's an absolute disconnection, okay? Leaving out that front area, starting off from the perimeter, came in through the perimeter, what am I doing? I'm slicing from the bottom up, I'm like, slicing from the bottom up, and then coming back through and dropping that down, and then just working a bit of a face frame. So I'm gonna land just a couple of inches below her chin. That's where I set that up at. And then after that, going in through the dryer and the brush, and utilizing the brush to do a ribboning effect. So literally allowing the hair to wrap around the actual brush itself. So adding a bit of, like I said, it's a form of like a polished texture, if you will. The goal is not to necessarily have a giant buxom finish, but that's kind of what we get considering how light her hair is and how easily it took with the product. So all in all, with the finish itself, after drying the hair, going back through with the texturizing, so to release that weight internally, just worked vertical panels as I worked around the head shape. Just coming in with a C curvature slice, working from the bottom up to release that weight, at the same time allowing that texture to kick even more. So specifically, if she wears her hair, like I said, she lets it air dry, if she's one of those, then she can easily have a lovely finish.